Hey everyone, it's Johnny here from Hockey, and I am in a different location today, but I just want to keep pumping out these videos for you guys. It is summer, but we're getting closer and closer to the NHL season, so thank you so much for the support, and of course, if you are new, please do subscribe, drop a like, but today's video is 10 possible trades for Patrik Laine, so we're going to have some fun with it. And I think there is some scenarios here that I'm going to talk about that are more realistic than others, but 10 possible trades with 10 different teams. So let's get right into it. And starting with the Buffalo Sabres. So I think the Sabres and Jets could be trade partners here. And for Patrik Laine, who's an RFA, and I don't know if you saw the interview and the article that came out, Chris Johnson spoke with Patrik Laine, and he was kind of pointing to the direction that he would be open to playing with a different team this upcoming year, but he hasn't had a problem with Winnipeg, so he just wants to play hockey this upcoming season. But for the Buffalo Sabres, Rasmus Ristolainen is in a similar situation. More of him having troubles with Buffalo, and he's under contract, but for Rasmus Ristolainen, he needs a change of scenery. And for Ristolainen, maybe he heads to Winnipeg, maybe Laine heads to the Buffalo Sabres. I think Casey Mittelstadt could be the game changer for a trade here. Obviously, for, I think, anyone in their right mind, you can't be saying that you think a Laine for Ristolainen a trade would be fair 1-for-1. I don't think it would be as bad as a Taylor Hall for Adam Larson trade, but it just wouldn't be fair. And I think adding Casey Mittelstadt to that scenario, maybe picks and prospects are in the conversation as well, but I think Mittelstadt and Ristolainen would be two very intriguing pieces for the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for Patrik Laine. Now the Anaheim Ducks. Well, there's a few names I would look for at the Anaheim Ducks if I'm the Winnipeg Jets. That'd be Rickard Rakell, Josh Manson, Cam Fowler. I think Fowler is definitely overrated and maybe overpaid in some eyes, but the Winnipeg Jets definitely lost some big pieces on the back end, whether it's Jacob Trouba or Tyler Myers, and adding one of Cam Fowler or Josh Manson could be a huge addition. And of course, Rickard Rakell, who had a down year, doesn't have as much value as he did 12 months previously, so I think for Rickard Rakell, maybe he heads to Winnipeg in this proposed deal, and Patrik Laine to the Anaheim Ducks. Next up, the Edmonton Oilers. So I think, again, we're talking about a lot of speculation, but I think the Edmonton Oilers could be a trade partner here because Puljujarvi is obviously one name that we don't expect to be in an Oilers jersey come, I would say, at least halfway through the season. And then you're talking about a guy like Darnell Nurse. Maybe Nurse becomes a key piece in a package heading to Winnipeg in exchange for Laine. Obviously, other pieces would be draft picks and prospects, but I think if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you'd be asking for a top 4 defenseman, a high draft pick or prospect, and a decent forward. And if that's the huge package, then maybe the Winnipeg Jets listen. But the one obvious one for me would be, and again, I don't think the Edmonton Oilers want to do this, or their fan base, would be Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Maybe a 1-for-1. Honestly, Nugent-Hopkins is right now more proven, and what do the Winnipeg Jets need? They need a second-line center. Nugent-Hopkins could fit that role perfectly, and maybe we're talking about a 1-on-1 potential deal here, or the bigger package, and that would be Puljujarvi, Nurse, and then you're getting into draft picks. But it's definitely interesting to talk about. Next up, the New York Islanders. So the Islanders, Jordan Eberle, Ryan Pulock. I think there could be a package brought up here, and maybe another one would be Anthony Beauvillier. I think for the New York Islanders, there's been a lot of speculation that they might pursue an offer sheet, whether that's Patrik Laine or Mitch Marner, and maybe they just go on the route of just making a straight-up trade, and that would make the Winnipeg Jets more comfortable. They get NHL-ready forwards or players in general back, and maybe that's something to consider. And I think Lou Lamoriello is very active on that front, and he wants to improve the offense. Next up, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So the Blue Jackets lost some firepower up front. And Cam Atkinson, yes, he was very good last year, but one by one, he is very inconsistent. Year by year, whether it's 1 year, he'll drop 70 points, and the next he goes down to 40 or 50. Last year was his really good year. So I think in a lot of eyes, you'd probably expect a down year once again. But I think Cam Atkinson, he's a very hard worker. If you put him around good players, imagine a line of maybe Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and spread Blake Wheeler out, or even have him on the second line with potentially another center that you go out and sought after. But I think for the Winnipeg Jets, if you're looking at the Blue Jackets, we're talking about Cam Atkinson, we're talking about Boone Jenner, we're talking about Ryan Murray. I think Boone Jenner is a favorite for John Tortorella, so I think that might not be an option there. And I think a guy like Zach Werenski might be too out of a reach for the Winnipeg Jets. But maybe a package starting with Atkinson, Murray, and then you get into prospects and picks could be an option for the Jets. Next up, the Detroit Red Wings. So the Red Wings have these two guys, Athanasiou and Mantha. 1 year left, both over $3 million, and they'll both be RFA situations. So the Winnipeg Jets, if they did trade Laine for these two guys, it would turn into a situation of, well, you have this RFA situation this year, and you're turning that into two RFA situations the following year. So it'd be an interesting situation. Obviously, Athanasiou, when he has a year that he had, and Mantha's been pretty consistent the last couple of years, that provides a lot of value. So I'm not sure the Red Wings would want to include both these guys. Maybe it's a different kind of package, but if I'm the Winnipeg Jets, I'm looking at both of these names. The Carolina Hurricanes. So Martin Necas, Brett Pesce, just a couple names that I would be looking at if I was looking at a potential trade between the Winnipeg Jets and Carolina Hurricanes. Necas is a guy that he's young. He might not fit into the top 6 for the Hurricanes, and that's where maybe the Winnipeg Jets come in and, you know what, maybe put a lot of faith in one of him or Roslovic becoming their future second-line center. So that could be an option there. I think for the Carolina Hurricanes, they're continuously looking for more offense. They were worried that they were going to lose Sebastian Aho, and they're very comfortable with their defense group. Their goaltending is obviously a question mark at all times, but they're putting their hope back in Peter Mrazek, so maybe they take that big leap for their offense and acquire Patrik Laine. Next up, the New Jersey Devils. So the Devils, Taylor Hall, Kyle Palmieri. Those are the two big names I would look at for the Devils. Obviously for Kyle Palmieri, that would maybe be more realistic, and then add in maybe a prospect and a high draft pick. But for Taylor Hall, 1 year left on his contract, and we keep talking about if Taylor Hall's going to stay, if Taylor Hall's going to go, if the Devils are going to trade him, because there's this big uncertainty if he will re-sign with the Devils. Well, what if Taylor Hall was sent to the Winnipeg Jets? This one's more fun. I don't really think this would go down, but Taylor Hall for Patrik Laine, obviously that's not fair on the surface, but Patrik Laine you have under control. So for the New Jersey Devils in that aspect, you have Patrik Laine, who's still very young. You just got Jack Hughes. You just acquired and signed Nikita Gusev. You're getting all these younger pieces. So obviously I think Taylor Hall's a much better, much more complete player than Patrik Laine. But in terms of control, in terms of contract situation, that's something to consider. Next up, the Montreal Canadiens. So Jonathan Drouin was the most inconsistent for the Montreal Canadiens by far. You throw in Deneau maybe in there, your future second line center for the Winnipeg Jets. Well, I wouldn't say future right now, because after last year for Deneau, I thought he had a very good year. And for the Montreal Canadiens, he was on that line that contributed the most for them. So it would be a question mark if they would want to give up on that line, but acquiring a sniper, a pure goal scorer like Patrik Laine is hard to come by, so maybe the Montreal Canadiens want to go after that. Next up, the Minnesota Wild. So Jason Zucker, Eriksson Ek, Jared Spurgeon. If I'm the Winnipeg Jets, I'm looking at those three names. Eriksson Ek is an upcoming player. Zucker, Spurgeon, obviously more vets, but they provide a lot of value. Just in my perspective, I think the Winnipeg Jets, if you were to trade Laine, you would want a younger piece with potential coming back, and that would be Eriksson Ek, but obviously you want NHL-ready top 6, top 4 defensemen coming back, and I think for the top 4 situation, that would be Jared Spurgeon. For a top 6 forward group, that would be Jason Zucker. So back to the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Buffalo Sabres are the most, I started off the video with that, I think the Buffalo Sabres are the most realistic opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets. I think Rasmus Ristolainen, we've talked about him in trade rumors. There was some rumor going around of Ristolainen and Middlestat for Braden Point. I think Ristolainen and Middlestat would be more realistic to head to Winnipeg in exchange for Laine. Winnipeg's looking for that second line center. They lost two significant players in their back end. That could be a package I could see going back to Winnipeg for Patrik Laine. So thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think about these trade scenarios. 10 possible trades for Patrik Laine. I think there is a possibility he does get moved, and it'll be a lot of fun to track this situation and all the other RFA situations to come. So look out for those videos as well. This was John from Hot Take Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.